My name is Charlie Kupchan. I'm a fellow here at CFR. It's my distinct pleasure and honor to welcome to our conversation this morning, this afternoon, in the case of those of you watching from Ukraine, Arseniy Yacenyuk. Arseniy Yacenyuk is the chairman of the Kyiv Security Forum. He served as prime minister after the Maidan Revolution from 2014 to 2016. He is joining us today in a country that is under siege. I think I speak for not just those people on the call, but for most of Americans and most people around the world in expressing, Arseniy, our profound hope and prayers for you and for your countrymen. We are amazed by the courage and the resistance that Ukrainians are showing. And I just want to thank you for taking the time to join us today at what is a very difficult moment for your country. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you very much for joining us. And we all wish you the very, very best.
Thank you. Thank you, Charlie, for your kind words addressed to the Ukrainian people, not to me. Thank you.
Sure. Let me begin just by asking you to share with us the moment. What does it feel like to be in Ukraine? What's the mood? What's the conversations that you're having on the street? And give us a sense of where we are. I think it's safe to say that the military campaign has not gone as the Russians had expected. They're not able to make the progress that they thought. They are not seeing the collapse of the Ukrainian army, which I think Putin, in a delusion, thought would happen. So just give us a sense of how you see things. What's the mood? What's the flavor? What are you thinking at this very moment?
Well, first, let me commend everyone who supports Ukraine. I mean, you as representatives of the international elite, as those who have very strong voice in supporting Ukraine, the US government, the President of the United States, the European Union, the free world. That's what Putin didn't expect. He didn't expect two things. The first one is a staunch and strong resolve of the Ukrainian people. And the second one, real unity among US, EU, and the free world. What is the mood, Charlie? From as a human being, what kind of feelings you have. Even if you got every single day reports or news that the aggression could happen, that Putin could wage the war against Ukraine, and you do understand that this could happen, but your heart will make a kind of roadblock. Maybe we can avoid this. But we were not able to avoid this because it's not Ukraine who started the war against Putin. It is Putin who decided to kill innocent Ukrainians, who decided to eliminate independent state, who decided to conquer Ukraine, who decided to redraw the map of the world after the Second World War. And it is Putin who committed war crimes. I want to be very clear about this, that Mr. Putin is a war criminal. He has to sit behind the bars in International Criminal Court. In terms of miscalculations of Putin and his cronies, they were convinced that his so-called army and his military would be ready to take over Ukraine in 96, maybe slightly more hours. But he didn't expect this kind of resolve, and he didn't expect this kind of resistance from Ukrainian military and from the Ukrainian people. That was his biggest miscalculation, and he always makes these kind of mistakes. He did it in 2004. You remember when he tried to appoint actually his handpicked president Yanukovych, and he actually congratulated him with the presidential elections in 2004. Then he did the same in 2014 when he expected that after the revolution of dignity, Ukraine will collapse, the government will collapse, the West will not support Ukraine, and he can easily swallow Ukraine. And he made another miscalculation in 2022, thinking that he can get a light victory with cheerful crowds, asking this real Nazi, who is Putin is. Putin is the Hitler of this century. So he believed that this Nazi would be accepted with the cheerful crowds in Ukraine. He didn't even thought that Russian military and Russian army would be fought like hell by Ukrainians, that Ukrainians will kill invaders. So this was a miscalculation in terms of general situation in Ukraine. The good thing is that, look, the president is in the office. And I do respect that the president is doing his job. He is defending and protecting the constitution and the country. Ukrainian military is still durable and fighting like hell. Ukrainian people helping each other. And that's really something about this country. And it always happens the same. When Ukrainian people stand shoulder to shoulder and they save each other and they save the country. So, this is the war, and it always goes like ups and downs. One day we believe that we already won. Another day we believe that the progress has to be better. But the thing is that this is the 8th day of the war that Russia waged against Ukraine, and we stand.
Let me offer an assessment of where we are and get your response to it, Mr. Prime Minister. And that is that it's difficult to discern an end game here. And by that, I mean a political end game, because we don't know where the military campaign will go, but judging by Russia's past behavior, judging by what they did in Grozny, Putin is probably likely to turn up the heat. So we don't know, but let's wait and see. But let's say that they have a certain level of military success, that they're able to take over Kyiv. What then, right? My sense is that Russia is then left trying to govern through coercion 44 million seething Ukrainians, and that any government that might be installed by Russia will have no legitimacy, no support, and no ability to govern the country. Would you agree with that assessment? And if you agree with that assessment, what is Putin thinking?
Well, here is the thing, Mr. President. I don't want to get into any kind of deliberations or some kind of case scenarios. What's going to happen if Putin takes over Ukraine? But sorry, I have to be blunt. I don't even want to disseminate these kind of frustrating messages to the entire world. So we are standing, we are fighting like hell. And the key priority for us today is to save Ukraine. We have guts. We have firepower. We have national unity. And we have your support, the support of the free world. Whether can Putin conquer Ukrainians? No, because neither Putin nor anyone else who are dictators, they can't conquer and siege the freedom, because it's more just than the country, than the people. This is the basic value of the human beings. This is the basic value of our world. So he cannot conquer Ukraine and Ukrainians. So I believe that it would be great today for us to have a chat, to have a conversation, how to help Ukraine, how to resist Putin, how to undermine Putin's regime in Russia, how to ramp up sanctions against Russia, how to undermine this dictatorship regime in the Russian Federation, how to make Russian people pay. I want to be, again, very clear, for their support of Putin's atrocity in Ukraine. They have to feel that, look, what Ukrainians are feeling, because he is killing us, Ukrainians, and Russian people, they have to bear the brunt for this. So sorry for that, but again, please, let's turn the tide in our conversation. Let us focus on how to save Ukraine. Because if we start any kind of talks whether Putin would be able to run Ukraine or no, this would send a very, I would say, bad, dubious, and wrong message.
Understood. Thank you for that. In the spirit of that comment, let me ask you whether you think, number one, there is more that the United States and its partners can do. I heard just before I hopped on this call that Biden plans to ask for $10 billion to provide additional support to Ukraine. What else do you think that can be happen to support your country? And also on the Ukrainian side, yes, the resistance is extraordinary. Surprised the world, surprised the Russians, importantly. Are there other things that you think could be an important factor here? Off-ramps, ceasefires, conversations, diplomacy. Where can we see rays of light to prevent the continued military attack against Ukraine?
So, as of now, what has been done by the free world, by the United States, by the European Union, and by the Ukrainian people? In terms of Ukrainian people, you are well aware that we Ukrainians showed very strong resilience. So we are fighting, and that's what Putin didn't expect. In terms of the Western support, we started with this kind of message that Putin didn't expect this kind of unity and strong Western respond to his aggression too. I believe that what is needed right now, the first and utmost, support of lethal weapon, shipment of lethal weapon to Ukraine. Now it has started. We don't know the real data, but the media says that there is a delivery of lethal weapon to defend Ukraine from our Western allies. So we need fighter jets, we need anti-aircraft systems, we need missiles surface to air, we need missiles surface to surface. That's what Ukrainian military already asked the free world. The second one, there are a number of ideas whether to impose no-fly zone. I do understand that this decision is a tough one, but in order to protect civilians, in order to avoid casualties, in order to help Ukrainian military to defend the country, this option as a no-fly zone has to be on the table of NATO. The third issue is sanctions. Please, every single day, ramp up sanctions. Because Putin and his entourage, they have to realize that Russia not will, but is right now, at this particular period of time, paying a very high price for invading Ukraine. Russian people have to realize that this crazy president, Putin, pushed them into the dire economic and financial conditions. So to wrap up sanctions to squeeze and stifle Russian economy, actually to launch against Russia financial, economic, and political war. The West is doing very good, and we are very grateful. But we have a number of additional options on the table. What kind of inflows, what kind of gains Putin's economy gets? The key lucrative business of Putin is energy. So a full and complete ban on the Russian energy products has to be a primary target for the Western world. The US can easily cope with this, easily cope. There is some troubles with the European Union, but they are temporary troubles. Because look, what date is it today? This is the 3rd of March. This is not the 3rd of January, not the 3rd of February. This is the 3rd of March. It's completely different climate, and it's completely different energy circumstances. So the EU can afford to get rid of the Russian natural gas. And this is even in the national and business interests of the United States and the European Union. So complete and full ban of Russian energy. Charlie, that last year, the revenues of the Russian energy sector for the last year, $235 billion. $235 billion. And he took this money and he modernized his military, and using this unbelievable pile of cash, he invaded Ukraine. The fourth issue, which is a geopolitical one, EU integration. I believe that you saw the session of the European Parliament when Ukrainian president signed an application form for EU membership. It would be great to sign not to send the signal, but to adopt a decision to make Ukraine an EU candidate. Because this would change an entire optics, I would say, that the West strongly believes that Ukraine is a part of the European Union. What you just, Charlie, mentioned, an initiative that launched by President Biden, and once again, we are very grateful to the US administration and personally to President Biden, is a good one. So we need a kind of Marshall Plan for Ukraine. A Marshall Plan launched by the entire free world. It's not about $10 billion, because look at this catastrophe, at these devastations that Russian military already did to Ukraine. It's hundreds of billions of dollars. But this initiative, this platform has to be established, and the world has to be very clear and saying that, look, we will never abandon Ukraine. We will help Ukraine to rebuild and to restore its independence and integrity.
One issue that you did not mention, Mr. Prime Minister, is diplomacy. Either the conversations taking place between Kyiv and Moscow in or around the border with Belarus, or interventions from the United States or the EU or the UN. Is that because you think that at this point, diplomacy doesn't have a chance, that we don't see a pathway to de-escalation? Let us know where you land on this diplomatic issue.
Mr. President, let me put it this way. Putin had a huge window opportunity of different types of diplomacies. You remember his meeting with President Biden, right? A number of telephone chats with the President of the United States. Then it was a kind of shuttle diplomacy of a number of EU leaders to Moscow. President Macron, Chancellor Scholz, and a number of different European politicians who were trying to find a diplomatic solution. And do you remember what Putin also always saying? We are not going to invade Ukraine. He never acknowledged, he never said that aggression is imminent, that he is ready to wage the war against Ukraine. So we had a diplomatic path, and the free world tried to exploit this path. And we were acting in a goodwill, not Putin. So he is a liar. Whether whether we have a chance for diplomacy. At this particular juncture, I don't believe that there is any kind of real diplomacy going. He's lying. You saw these so-called talks in Belarus. That's for the alibi. This is the smoke screen. My take and my guess is that this kind of diplomacy, that Putin personally interested in getting in this kind of diplomacy. And you know the reason why? Because he needs to buy the time. He can't build up logistics for his military. Because the logistics they had in their mind was only for 96 hours. But he lost the momentum. Because we gained the momentum at the Ukrainian people. So whether there is any kind of room for diplomacy, maybe the time will come when we will have the room for diplomacy. But this diplomacy won't happen between just Ukraine and Putin. This is diplomacy that is to happen between the free world and dictator Putin. This is completely different stuff. Whether Ukrainian delegation, this is high profile, because look at the Russian delegation. It's just nonsense. Those who represent Russia, they are nobodies. But Ukrainian delegation is a high-profile delegation with the DOD, with the Ministry of Defense, with the Deputy Chief of Staff, and the rest of the stuff. What kind of deliverables they can get? Ceasefire, withdrawal of Russian troops, and humanitarian corridor for humanitarian reasons. This is the best case scenario I can imagine. But I am not sure that Putin is to agree to anything out of this.
Right before we started the conversation with the audience, Arseny, you and I were chatting. And we discussed the assessment that this could be the beginning of the end of Putin, that he seems to be living in a world of delusions. He seems to have thought that the Ukrainian people would rally behind Russian soldiers once they came in. He seemed to believe that he would be able to crack the West, divide Europeans, divide the Europeans from the United States. And the support for Ukraine in the world community has been amazing, including in the UN General Assembly yesterday. So, my gut is telling me that this will not end well for Putin, that he has made a fundamental miscalculation, and that the Russian people and those around him may assess Putin's decision to have been reckless and misguided. Would you comment on that view, given your knowledge of Mr. Putin, given your knowledge of the Russians, and where you see the conflict as of today?
When I saw his address, when he addressed the Russian people just a few days before the invasion, not the day he decided he announced the invasion, but when he addressed the Russian people before the invasion, when they recognized these so-called self-proclaimed republics of the Ukrainian territory, which is in the east of Ukraine, in Donetsk and Lugansk, I was closely watching him, both during this address and during the meeting of the National Security Council of the Russian Federation. It was just a crazy theater. And my guess, Charlie, is that something wrong with this guy, with Putin. He's completely different than I remember him a decade ago. No doubt that he's unhinged. And no doubt that all the decisions he has made are completely crazy, like he is. So it's kind of pariah right now. He's completely isolated. He's scared of everyone, because you saw these distant tables, just long tables, when he, with his chief of DOD and foreign minister, can't even meet face to face. It's easier for them even to have Skype conversation rather than to sit in the same room with Putin. So he's completely isolated. he is unhinged, and he believes that he is Messiah, that he is a Messiah, which is very dangerous. It has nothing to do with the history or ideology. It's more about psychiatrists. So he believes that he has the mission to restore the unity of Slavic people, that he is to liberate Ukrainians from whatever, as he called neo-Nazis, that he is to liberate Ukrainians from Ukraine, from the state of Ukraine. He believes that the only power he can be equal to is the United States, because he is challenging you. And he believes that he can write his own history. And that's the reason why he decided to invade Ukraine. And that's the reason why he decided to fight against the free world. So we see a completely crazy president of Russia with the nuclear option on the table. That's where we are right now.
Let me follow up with a final related question, and then we're going to open it up to those who have joined the call. You are Ukrainian, you grew up in Ukrainian, you've had longstanding ties to Russians. I'm guessing that Putin's claim that Ukrainians are brethren, that we are from the same historical, cultural, linguistic background, will end up undermining him rather than serving as a legitimation of his invasion, because I'm guessing that this is not just an elite issue, and we do see prominent Russians beginning to speak out against Putin, but that the soldiers that are in the streets in Ukraine are wondering what they are doing, killing people who Putin has just told them are brethren of Russians, right? We're one people. I would think that Russians are going to start saying, what are we doing here? Talk a little bit about the sort of cultural, familial, historical side of the conflict that's unfolding in the streets of Ukraine.
Well, here is the thing. There are some people in the world who believe that that Ukrainians are more Russian than just Ukrainians. And you know the reason why they say this? Because half of Ukrainian population speak Russian language. But it's nothing. Well, they just speak Russian language, but they are real Ukrainians. And the reason, the difference between Ukraine and Russia is very clear. Ukrainians are very free people. They know what freedom is really about. They know what freedoms and liberties are really about. They know how to defend their independence, even despite the fact that they speak the Russian language. Look at Kharkiv. Kharkiv, this is the second largest city in Ukraine. Around 90% of Kharkiv speak Russian language. But look how they are fighting and defending their city. And look how this so-called liberator and Nazi-style Putin bombards, kills, and shells Russian-speaking Kharkiv, Russian-speaking Mariupol in the east of Ukraine. They were all Russian-speaking too. But they are defending their homeland. They are defending Ukraine. So I want to explain to everyone who is watching us right now, Ukraine is not Russia. Ukrainians are not Russians. Even if they speak Russian language, they have the Ukrainian heart, soul, and mind. And that's the difference. And you see, and there is a proof right now. There is a proof. The 8th day of the war launched by Russia against Ukraine, Ukrainians are fighting. Ukrainians are fighting against this aggressor who said to his own people that he is to liberate Ukraine, but not to invade. Ukraine is liberating itself from Putin's army and from Russians. And Mr. President, I missed the previous question you raised. This is the start of the end of Putin's Russia. Putin triggered this process. That's not even miscalculation. He made the biggest historic mistake in his tenure as a president, and this is the biggest historic mistake for the Russian Federation and for the Russian people. He personally and Russians will pay the price for what they have already done to Ukraine.
Thank you very much. I agree with you that this is a fundamental miscalculation that is not going to end well for Putin. Sam, why don't we begin to take questions for the Prime Minister from those people that have joined the call?
Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, as a reminder, to ask a question, please click on the raise hand icon on your Zoom window. When you are called on, please accept the unmute now button and proceed with your name, affiliation, and question. And as a reminder, this meeting is on the record. We will take our first question from Thomas Remington. Please remember to state your affiliation.
Thank you very much, Thomas Remington, Harvard University. Thank you, Mr. Yacenyuk, for being with us. Let me say how deeply impressed I am, and we all are, at the staunch resolve of the Ukrainian people. It's just extraordinary and deeply impressive. Thank you for being with us. I'm in touch with Russian friends and colleagues who are appalled, horrified, ashamed at what the Russian government has done. From your knowledge of Russia and Russians, is there anything the world could or should be doing to strengthen the hand of those Russians, intellectuals, business people, and others who are horrified at Russia's aggression against Ukraine? Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I want to reiterate once again that Russia and those who support Putin in Russia, they have to bear the brunt for this invasion of Ukraine, for these atrocities that committed by Putin's regime. And the sanctions that have already been imposed on Russia, they are quite effective, but we need to ramp up these sanctions to increase the effectiveness of these sanctions. I want Russian currency to be a junk currency. I want Russian assets to be a toxic assets. I want Russian oligarchs to realize that everything they allocated in the West is frozen, that their super yachts, their jets, and the rest of the stuff are frozen and arrested. I want all these Russian bureaucrats and Russian representatives of so-called pro-Putin Russian elite that live in London, in the European Union, in the US, in different parts of the world, that are worth of tens of or millions or hundreds of millions of dollars with the real estate, with the property, that get an education in the Ivy League, they have to be banned. They have to be actually stopped of getting all these services. Those who have green cards, those who have visas. So please impose visa ban on those who support Putin's regime. Russian people, so your question is whether Russian people can support Ukraine via a kind of political riot in Russia, whether Russian people can stand up for Ukraine in Russia. Yes, they can. But Russian psychology it's as this, they have to feel it in their pockets. If they start to feel it, they will definitely find someone who is responsible for this. And this someone is Putin. So please, my message to you is impose stifle, tough and strong sanctions on Russian economy, on Russian financial sector, on Russian energy sector. Russian people have to realize that this is the Putin who made living standards for Russia going down every single second.
I would just add, Arseny, I think on the information front, Ukraine and the United States and its allies have actually done a pretty good job and gotten out in front of this issue. One issue I saw yesterday is that Ukrainians have put up a website where they're putting the names of captured and killed Russian soldiers so that Russians know what's going on. That is an excellent step forward in trying to push back against the Russian narrative. Kudos to whoever put that up. Next question, please.
You're absolutely right, Charlie. Absolutely right. Sorry, just for one intervention. It never happened before in the global history, because what the US and the free world has done with this massive information campaign, this was a kind of biggest peacekeeping operation, biggest peacekeeping informational operation, saying to the world that we know what you are going to do. We will disclose everything, and all this Russian deception will not be accepted by anyone. We know that this is the crap what Putin is telling, and it was a massive, not disinformation, but truthful information campaign never launched before in the global history.
Right, and it is yielding benefits. I mean, I have to say, I'm surprised by the European reaction. Right, the strength of the sanctions, of voices in Germany, of Germany's commitment to spend 2% of GDP on defense, of the EU's paying for lethal weapons to Ukraine. This really is a sense that hearts and minds have been won over, and the information campaign has been excellent.
Titanic ships. Yeah.
Next question.
We will take our next question from Alexander Vershbow.
Arseny, thank you very much. And our hearts go out to you and all the Ukrainian people. I have a similar question to Tom Remington about what else can be done to get through to the Russian population to undermine domestic support for Putin's war, which he's fighting in their name. They would be shocked if they knew the truth. Is there anything in particular that Russian-speaking Ukrainians, as you were describing them, they're Russian-speaking, but they're Ukrainian, can get through using social media, getting prominent celebrities from the arts, from music, from sports, to get through to the Russian audience and undermine Putin's political support at home? Seems that may be the key to bringing this to a rapid conclusion.
Absolutely, I fully share your take, and it's on the way right now. It's happening. And it's easy to test whether this campaign of Russian-speaking Ukrainians and all those people who are, I would say, sane and who support Ukraine, even in Russia, whether this is effective or no. It's very effective. And you know the reason why? Because Russian Roskomnadzor, whatever, this kind of communication agency of the Russian Federation, they ask YouTube and another media platforms to stop broadcasting of a number of bloggers, celebrities, and those who are very vocal against the Russian aggression in Ukraine. For example, Gordon, we have a Russian-speaking anchor. He's not an anchor, he's like a blogger or kind of journalist. He's very vocal, and he has a huge Russian-speaking audience in Ukraine and Russians in the Russian Federation and in Kazakhstan and everywhere. So, for example, they try to block his account. A number of celebrities, even in the United States, even in the US, started to support Ukraine. So there is a huge ongoing information support campaign of those who can reach out to Russians who have some kind of reputation among the Russian people and who are very vocal in supporting Ukraine. And Putin, he clearly understands that he is losing this kind of information campaign because he is good at disinformation. We are good in telling the truth. Those who speak Russian, those who have support in the Russian Federation, they are very, very loud. And they support and send messages to the Russian people, direct messages.
Next question, please.
Our next question will be from Lori Garrett.
Thank you very much. This is an absolutely spectacular meeting, and I'm very grateful. We've seen many references, and you referenced the notion that Putin is unhinged. And many people have talked about Putin having changed during 2 years of COVID isolation and that his inner circle is smaller. To what degree, how much can we justifiably ascribe what is going on right at this moment to Putin's actual state of mind, his actual, shall we say, current psychiatric makeup?
Let me reiterate once again that this is not the person I met a decade ago. He's completely different. So he's obsessed with his role as a messiah. He's completely isolated. And I believe that his inner circle fed him with the information he wanted to hear. Because he really believes that he needs to, maybe again, he really believes that that his mission is to liberate Ukraine from Ukrainians. Right? Because he can't realize that Ukraine is different than Russia, that Ukrainians are not Russians. And you remember his article that he published a few months ago when he digged into the history, and he was presented like the biggest historian of the world, which this article has nothing to do with the history. It was a complete lie, falsified political narrative. So he is dangerous. His state of mind is very dangerous. And that's the reason why he started to threat the world with the nuclear arms. So for me, this is, I would say, the highest alert. When the president of the nuclear power decide to threat the world with the nuclear arms, he's completely unhinged. Then we need to figure out what kind of, who encircles him. Whom is talking to Putin and vice versa? Lavrov. I started to closely watch his commands. Well, that's just crazy stuff. Today he made a press conference saying that Zelensky gave his National Guard to protect Ukrainian neo-Nazis. It's just completely crazy nonsense. That is spelled by the Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Russian Federation. So that's another crazy guy. The DOD, the Minister of Defense, who is close, as far as I understand, very close to Putin. You know what? It seems that what is happening right now in Moscow, is practically similar what happened in Nazi Germany with Hitler's entourage. And that's the reason why Putin decided to broadcast the meeting of his National Security Council, because he gave a chance to speak out to everyone in order to make all of them accomplices of this crime that he has committed. So they are so interlinked and tied to each other because all of them are war criminals, Putin and his cronies, that there is nobody in his inner circle who can stop him. And this is the biggest problem.
Next question, please.
Our next question will be from Matthias Matthews.
Mr. Prime Minister, thank you so much for this powerful plea. I'm very happy I joined this meeting. Two very short questions, if Charlie allows me. I'm Matthias Matthijs. I'm a senior fellow for Europe at CFR as well. One, can you talk a little bit about the role of Belarus in this conflict? Is he terrified of, is Lukashenko terrified of Putin and just doing whatever he's told? Or is there something more sinister going on? And secondly, how worried are you that this will get beyond Ukraine, like Moldova and other countries? And how worried should the West be of this and prepared? Thank you so much.
In terms of Belarus, Putin already annexed Belarus. After Lukashenko held completely unfair and unfree elections and proclaimed himself as the president, Putin swallowed Belarus and Lukashenko. Look, Lukashenko, he was always Putin's crony, puppet, whatever. He was very close to Putin. I do remember once a meeting with Lukashenko when on the one hand he was hugging and kissing Putin, and just 15 minutes after this he reached out to me saying that please don't trust to Putin. He was always playing like this. So you can't trust to Lukashenko, and Lukashenko is actually another accomplice of Putin, because the military, the war that was waged by Putin, completely supported by Belarus and Lukashenko, because all these BTG, this is tactical groups and armored vehicles and Russian military deployed in Belarus, and it crossed Ukrainian-Belarus border. So actually, Belarus is no longer Belarus. Belarus is subsidiary of the Russian Federation. Lukashenko is no longer the president of Belarus. Lukashenko is just a hand-picked temporarily ruler of Belarus. And your second question was?
How
far it could go.
Yeah,
yep.
Moldova. Yeah.
Look, if he succeeds in Ukraine, he will move further, no doubt. I want to be very clear about this. Because what triggered Putin? A few things triggered Putin. The first one is that he easily swallowed Belarus and Lukashenko. So this is Lukashenko and Belarus became an integral part of the Russian Federation, actually. Not yet legally, but actually and factually. Then Kazakhstan. Kazakhstan was another, I would say, booster for Putin to launch this military aggression against Ukraine. Last but not least, but the timetable is different, Afghanistan. He was boosted by what he saw in Afghanistan. So in my opinion, these were the three triggers that somehow boosted Putin's decision to launch an invasion against Ukraine. So we have to stop him. And we as Ukrainian people, we are doing this. If we fail, this would have a dramatic consequences for the entire free world. Nobody will be safe, nobody. But we will never surrender, and we will win.
Next question, please.
Our next question will be from Farnaz Vasili.
Hello, Arsenik. Thank you very much for giving us your time under the circumstances, and our hearts go out to you and the Ukrainian people. I wanted to ask you where you see immediately in the next few days or weeks sort of this conflict going. Do you think there'll be sort of a protracted urban warfare? And how will it end? Like, what's the end game? I know you say you won't surrender, and you know, judging by the way that you've assessed Putin's mental state, it doesn't sound like he's going to back down. So how do you see the next few weeks evolving?
We are not going to back down too. So the primary target for Putin is to siege capital, and to siege Kharkiv, to siege Mariupol, and actually to press on the Ukrainian government and on the Ukrainian president to capitulate and to surrender. This is not going to happen. Much depends on the durability and the strength of the Ukrainian military. They are showing very strong resolve. And let me again reiterate my message to the free world. Lethal weapon needs to be delivered to the Ukrainian army. And please elaborate on over an idea to have a no-fly zone over Ukraine. And again, ramp up sanctions. Every single day we stay, every single day he cannot siege the capital. Every single day he can't get any kind of real tangible results. We are stronger because every single day his economy is sinking. Every single day his people is feeling the pain. Every single day the world is more united than it was even yesterday. So in this particular time, in this very dramatic time, even every hour is important. What's going to happen in 2 weeks, I don't know. I want to be very clear. But who could imagine, as 8 days ago, that actually having already 8 days of a very intensive war, Putin didn't get anything he expected. So my guess and my take is that we will stand, and the longer we stand, the weaker Russia will be, and the stronger our joint response will be. So it's important just to stand and to fight.
Thank you. Next question, please.
Our next question will be from Raj Bala.
Thank you, Mr. Prime Minister. I'm Raj Bala from the University of Kansas Law School, and I want to say here in the American heartland, all of us just are entirely in support of you and Ukraine. And yesterday in our Ash Wednesday services, all of our prayers are with you. My question is, as an Indian whose family migrated from India, could you please comment on the 2 abstentions in the United Nations that India cast regarding Ukraine, and what advice you might have for India as a democracy to perhaps alter its position on Ukraine and be much more supportive? Thank you, and God bless you.
And
thank you, sir.
Arseniy, when you answer that, could you say a word or two about China? And
that's what I wanted to say.
Okay, then and over to you.
That's what I wanted to say. Thank you. I was very upset with the decision of India not to support a resolution that is supported by 141 nations. My message to India and to Indian Prime Minister, Mr. Prime Minister, we do understand that you have very strong links with the Russian Federation. We do understand that Russia is a close economic and political partner of India. But Mr. Prime Minister, I want your nation to flourish. I want your people to be free. I want your country to be independent. And I urge you to want the same for my country, completely the same. In terms of China, Beijing has an upper hand over Putin. Beijing decided to abstain. My take is that if Beijing abstains, it means that Beijing supports Putin. President Xi has the chance, in current circumstances, to start to play a major role in the world. If he decides to support territorial integrity of Ukraine, if he decides to support independence of Ukraine, and if he starts to be very vocal, both publicly and unpublicly, reach out to Putin, asking Putin to stop, this deserves the credit. But China is not eager to do this. That's not the plan they have. And that was another miscalculation of the free world, Charlie, because some people were thinking that, look, the biggest problem right now is China, so let's have good relations with Russia, and then our hands will be free and we can focus on China. My guess and my comment and my chats with a number of our American friends was, folks, look, please. They are together They are together. And look what's happening right now. We see that really they are together. So neither India nor China didn't step up as those who support independence and freedoms and liberties. And that's wrong from the historic standpoint, from the geopolitical standpoint, from the human standpoint. So on the other hand, look, now we have to realize, I mean, we as the free world, that it's only up to us, the US, the European Union, and Ukraine, and the free world to stand united and then to close our ranks. So that's the life we are living in. So,
one more question, please.
We will take our final question from Stephen Koltai.
Thank you so much. I'm Stephen Koltai from MIT. One quick point and then one question. The quick point is that people in Brussels, Geneva, and Montreal all speak French, but they're not French. And I think it would be helpful if when Ukraine talks about Russian-speaking Ukrainians, you might use some analogies like that. The second point is you've made it very clear that Ukraine needs more sophisticated weaponry. And my concern and question is whether there is the expertise to actually use that weaponry if provided, understanding that the American government and probably most European governments want to avoid a direct interaction with the Russians and therefore will not send their own technicians and experts into Ukraine. So can the Ukrainians themselves actually operate the volume of additional weaponry that could potentially be made available? Thank you.
My answer is yes, and easily. Ukrainian military have very high IQ. And you can easily ask US training personnel, British training personnel, Canadian training personnel that was deployed in Ukraine and had the joint military drills with the Ukrainian military and with the Ukrainian army. They can easily operate all sophisticated weapons.
Arseniy, Mr. Prime Minister, we are out of time. I just thank you for taking the time out of your day under very trying circumstances to join us. Most of the world, including all Americans, are with you. As you probably know, liquor stores around the United States are pouring out their Russian vodka. Our hearts, our souls, our prayers are with you. I look forward to the day, hopefully soon, when you and I can again meet face to face. Let's stay in touch, stay strong, stay safe. It's been an honor to have you join us today.
Thank you, Charlie. Thank you, Charlie. Once again, we will survive. Thank you for the job you are doing. Please tell to the world that Ukraine needs help. So God help Ukraine, God save Ukraine, and God save the United States.